And actually what we found in all these focus groups was everyone's tired. Millennial female consumers are tired and overwhelmed. They're like, I've had enough. Almost to the point of like, they're swinging the other direction, right? Like I am over marketed to, and I'm so confused that I'm done, right? Because we've also said yes to all sorts of weird products that don't do anything. So we're totally fatigued. We're totally overwhelmed. And funny enough, when we ran these focus groups, a lot of millennial women have like returned to just taking one thing, like a multivitamin after all of this.
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by Katie Wilson, co-founder and CEO of BelliWelli. In this episode, we talk about making gut health fun and accessible. Katie shares how the company evolved from snack bars to fiber powder, now sold nationwide at Target and Walmart. Plus, we discuss the billion-dollar opportunity to build the vital proteins or liquid IV of fiber. Let's get into it. The Fitt Insider Podcast is presented by EGYM. EGYM's smart fitness ecosystem is transforming healthcare through exercise. Combining strength equipment with AI-powered software and corporate wellness platform WellPass, it's leading the shift to proactive, preventative health. Learn more about EGYM's intelligent workout solutions at egym.com. Hi, Katie. Welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I was like looking at my calendar all day, so excited for the call.
Yeah, a lot to get into, and I'm excited to chat as well. To kick us off, though, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us about BelliWelli, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, it's like the million-dollar question. I'm Katie, one of the co-founders of BelliWelli. I always think it's fun to, we're going to spend plenty of time talking about BelliWelli, so I always like to start with a fun fact that's non-BelliWelli, which is before I started BelliWelli, I was a matchmaker. So my other passion in life is dating and relationships and being way too nosy about people's love lives. I've been running BelliWelli now for just about 4 years. So BelliWelli, what is BelliWelli? BelliWelli is not your grandma's fiber powder. Always a fun place to start. But we are a brand who truly believes that the key to looking better, feeling better is gut health. And we want to deliver gut health in delicious, easy ways. And in our opinion, that starts with fiber. So today you can find our BelliWelli fiber powder probably at a store within 10 minutes of you. But fiber coming in more forms soon as well.
So a little tease there that maybe we'll uncover. But the idea, 4 years, you're right on target and ahead of gut health, fiber maxing, fiber's the new protein, like all this stuff. Was that luck? Was that the plan? And making that transition, really, like you said, being everywhere. How do we go from, there to today?
A little bit of both, right? Not to cop out there, but a little bit of both. So I think I will give us credit. I think we were ahead of our time on gut health. When we first started talking about gut health and we coined the term hot girls of IBS, people thought we were crazy. And I remember there was still an uphill battle. It was still hard to get people to care about gut health, even 4 years ago. So I'd like to think we were early to that party. Fiber, I think we were a little bit early for sure, but the initial inspiration for the company wasn't just rooted in fiber. I think today we're largely rooted in fiber, so that came a little bit later. But I don't know, it's always feels so arrogant to say it, but I think we were kind of early to both. We certainly gut health, was something I kept when I was raising money. I kept saying, no, look, trust me, gut health matters, and my articulation of it was slightly different. It was, trust me, everyone's stomach hurts. You have to trust me. And no one believed me. And in fact, our test was always go talk to 5 women in your life, especially if we were talking to a male potential investor, and come back and let me know what you find. And it was like the secret about the world that we thought we had uncovered. And once you saw it or heard it, you couldn't unsee or hear it. Everyone was troubled with gut challenges or digestive challenges. And it was just so clear to us.
Even if you think like gut health or fiber, it's like those things in one way or another, you hear people talk about the microbiome and you hear people talk about, all these things. Maybe that's on the scientific side or, fiber on the kind of other end of the spectrum, like Metamucil or like eat your vegetables, kind of boring. You come on the scene, super colorful, very fun. You mentioned the hot girls of IBS, like even framing it that way. Was that part of the kind of initial concept of like, hey, not only can we do this and maybe we're ahead, but like we can make this way more fun and accessible.
Yes. So beyond even the term fun and accessible, which I think is spot on, right? One of my co-founders, Tyson, has put it so well. It's let's take fiber out of the medicine cabinet and put it on the kitchen counter as part of the daily wellness routine, right? Which I think is the perfect articulation of what you're saying. Historically, gut health, I think, and even fiber specifically, has been reserved for something being wrong, right? You go to your doctor and you're constipated, so you get put on that old orange school fiber. We're living in a time, very unfortunately, where 95% of people don't get enough fiber. Fiber deserves a place in the wellness routine. And for whatever reason, prior to us coming along, no one was talking about it in that way. I think that was the difference. And then again, of course, things like our fun, kind of crazy, quirky branding certainly helps with that. But beyond just being fun, the inspiration was let's put fiber on the kitchen counter. Let's make it something you're proud to pull out of your purse or tell your friends about.
Yeah, I think it's obviously has worked out super well, but very compelling to do that. And always this idea of like, oh, maybe with your co-founders, you're sitting around like, and you have this like idea, okay, we want to put fiber on the kitchen table. We want to make it part of wellness. On the other side of that, there's like the execution of like, hey, how do we how do we articulate this? How do we design this? How do we market this on platforms today? How challenging was that, and how were you able to do like that, the actual execution of this piece?
Gut health is still a big tent subject, right? And so it's a little abstract. So part of the work we've had to do is pulling out the pieces of gut health that are actually resonant and especially emotionally resonant for consumers. Most consumers don't have an emotional reaction or an emotional connection to gut health. And that actually wasn't obvious to us for a while. And to be honest, that's still work in progress, right? Is figuring out like how to pull those insights out and then stick them on a pack and make that emotional, right? When collagen came along, I'm not saying they didn't have a challenge, right? That was super challenging to make collagen what it is today. But the value prop is so resonant, right? Look younger. I mean, who doesn't want that? And I think part of the work to do in the gut health space is still figuring out which of those messages are stickiest. And then figuring out how to communicate them, right? One very clear vision we've always had for the brand, and we've stuck with it, is when I first started BelliWelli, there was nothing in the market for someone like me. It was either heavy science, which certainly has a place in the world, or potty talk. And I wanted something down the middle, right? Which used words that I understood, like bloat, and could feel. But I wasn't a consumer that was responding to either ends of the spectrum. And so the vision has always been make the product for that consumer right there in the middle, right? Someone, it should be inviting and accessible for all, right? We don't want you to feel like you have to Google terms on our website. We want everyone to feel welcome to this party, right? Anyone can do this. It's an easy path to wellness. It's inclusive and it's fun.
Putting yourself in the consumer's shoes, like there's so many things that now they have to like, oh, this is another metric I have to worry about. This is another device I have to worry about. This is another habit it gets to this point where it's like, why, like I can't do it anymore. It's like so overwhelming, and turning that around and just being like, oh, this is fun. This is fresh. This is, it resonates with how I'm actually feeling. Super smart. But again, like back to that point, like really challenging to deliver on that.
Yeah, we actually just ran a bunch of focus groups and the findings were pretty fascinating. And we had actually been mistaken until we'd gone through this. But we talk a lot to millennial women, and I'm one of them, right? I'm 33, right down the middle. And I think we were under the impression that millennial women are like health optimizers, right? Like we're in this era of like we listen to all the podcasts, right, about like which screen, a million things. And actually, what we found in all these focus groups was everyone's tired. Millennial female consumers are tired and overwhelmed. They're like, I've had enough, almost to the point of like they're swinging the other direction, right? Like I got rid of all my like I am over marketed to, and I'm so confused that I'm done, right? Because we've also said yes to all sorts of weird products that don't do anything. So we're totally fatigued, we're totally overwhelmed. And funny enough, when we ran these focus groups, a lot of millennial women have like returned to just taking one thing, like a multivitamin after all of this. And that was just so obvious once I heard it. It was like, yeah, of course, I fall into that category, but it wasn't, no one wants another routine. Like it's just It's tiring.
It's the wellness version of like that meme with like two people on opposite ends of the bell curve where it's like, oh, like take a multivitamin and like exercise and sleep well. And, figuring out where, to your point around like just exhaustion of everything,
Yeah.
fitting into that is like a huge unlock.
Yes.
So you running, I was going to ask about this, but like you said, oh, you were running focus groups and like, so you get this insight. What does that, I guess, maybe playbook, or it's like, what combination of things are you now eliciting insights from? Is it, your quick kind of fast executing on like ads and then seeing how they perform, doing focus groups? Like, what things are you taking in to be like, oh, this is how we can continue to stay ahead, and like actually meet people where they are?
Yeah. This is gonna sound crazy to say out loud, but our pulse on community and focus groups is actually one of our biggest challenges because we often fall victim to wanting to change all the time because we keep such a tight feedback loop that I actually think it weirdly hurts us, right? So I spend every single night of my life at a Walmart store, truly no exaggeration. So I go from 7 to 10 every single night. And there's so much input or that we're getting at all times. It's actually really challenging to figure out how much is applicable, how much belongs in a packaging iteration, how much like it's a muscle we're still working on developing. I'm glad that we have this incredible feedback loop, but the answer is I don't know, and I'm like comfortable saying I don't know because I think our intuition is apply it all the time, and I don't think that's quite right. I don't think we've struck that balance quite right yet. It certainly shows up when we learn something new. It will show up in social right away. That's easy, right? It will show up in our SMS, our emails, but how we take it to kind of brand vision and packaging is a work in progress.
It's really interesting to hear you say like you're spending all this time in Walmart. I forget if it was like a podcast or maybe a clip, but I heard Mr. Beast talking about this, like because they're selling Feastables, he's like, I just obsessively go and see like what does the product look like on the shelf? What is all these sorts of things? And you on the flip side of that, it's like if you read like headlines, I guess, about BelliWelli, it's like, ooh, made for TikTok, like Instagram, like engine. But of course, like yes, that is a huge channel, but like where does that break down from like, hey, you're spending 3 hours a night at Walmart and like what you're taking in there versus what you're taking in on social?
Data is often the easy part. It's what to do with data that's the hard part. And I think that goes for things far beyond CPG, right? It's like, it's one thing to collect data and that's fine, but it's, for example, even these focus groups, right? We came out of hours and hours and days worth of really incredible focus groups, but the work to do is like, how do you put those learnings into practice? And that is like where most learnings fall apart. So anyways, I think it's being at the store, filming TikTok content, keeping my pulse, keeping my finger on the pulse of TikTok has certainly been helpful. But it's also just trying to figure out how to like sort all these different worlds and how they come together and where they don't. It's really challenging.
Entering kind of like mass retail, was that always part of the, I guess, how big part of the kind of strategy when you were thinking like, hey, this is back to your, hey, we want to get on the kitchen table. Like certainly if you're talking about that, like Walmart, Target, like all those places, was that easier, harder than you thought? Like more like navigating, hey, putting up a website and selling this stuff through TikTok shop or whatever. It's like one thing, but like, hey, trying to get shelf space and mass distribution is like a totally different beast.
I always like to think of it as like we kind of forced ourselves to eat our vegetables first because going to retail, to your point, is difficult. But I'm not discounting that building an incredible D2C business is not also super difficult. Like it's actually the thing we haven't mastered yet, right? We focused all of our effort on retail and as a result built a really special retail business. But it's hard to develop that muscle, right? Especially as a small team. So, yes, to answer your question, it was an incredibly thoughtful, intentional choice. The vision was we think this matters so much, right? We are so convicted in feeling that every American needs more fiber right now. And if you have more fiber, you will look and feel better. That the only obvious way to do that was to be within 10 minutes of every American. And the only obvious way to do that, right, is to be at every Walmart and every Target and hopefully every, club as well. But that was the impetus for this. It was like, okay, if that's what we want to do and that's what we think that's our place in the world, then this is what we have to do that. It was as simple as that. Wouldn't change a thing. Difficult, like I said, right? Really difficult. But we've also just been so lucky. Walmart took a chance on us first. And I think out in the world, you hear that, like, as a small brand, Walmart feels really intimidating. We had the opposite experience. I mean, almost perfection. Like, they leaned in so hard, and Target did as well, right? We've had the dream scenario where in both cases, the retailers have leaned in and been there right there with us in the trenches. I think everyone saw the fiber opportunity, right? And we happened to be one of the first to that opportunity. And so as a result, the partnership has been beautiful. But yeah, still hard, that's for sure. And we're learning every day. I mean, there's plenty we've gotten wrong.
This episode of the Fitt Insider Podcast is brought to you by EGYM. EGYM makes some of the most innovative strength training machines on the market, but that's only one part of their integrated ecosystem. With connected fitness equipment, AI-powered gym software, and a comprehensive corporate wellness offering, it's forging the future of preventative health. Partnering with companies worldwide, EGYM's WellPass program improves employee health by expanding access to premier fitness and health facilities. Upgrading gym floors, EGYM equips every operator with smart equipment and AI tools to create hyper-personalized training plans for every exerciser. Putting it all together, they're transforming healthcare through exercise. Experience the power of EGYM's ecosystem at egym.com. It's like coming out of an era of like D to C everything, where it was like, hey, this is like the playbook and this is how you raise money and this is how you scale and whatever. And now into, I would say, like a different era. Not to say like there are still companies who are doing that, but like now it is, what is the split and how do you succeed in retail and how do you have this omnipresence, whatever. Was that a hurdle? Like you're trying to communicate essentially to investors and retail and partners, like, okay, we're doing fiber, we're making it like cool and accessible, and also it's not going to be pure D2C, and so we're going to go to retail. Like, was that a hurdle, or like Walmart and Target, like were investors and other folks like leaning in, like, oh, I see the strategy here?
A little bit of both. I mean, our unique story was that we went in to Walmart and we went into 1,000 stores, and the buyer took a chance on us. If I'm being honest, she probably didn't think she didn't say this out loud. She couldn't have been better, but she probably thought, like, good luck. This is a set that's owned by some older, big companies. And we looked her in the eye and said, we won't let you down. And we had 8x our velocity expectation within 8 weeks. So they called us and said, what the heck? What's going on? And our investors at the time, right, were right there with us and saw this happening. And so it was, I won't say it's easy, right? It's never easy, but it was so clear to everyone that had a front row seat that we had found pretty incredible product market fit. And it's not just, right, it's not just us that made that happen, right? It's the retail partners who leaned in and where they put us on the shelf. And I mean, it's never just the brand that's doing that, but we had all the pieces of the recipe and it was working. So from there, it made sense. We went from 1,000 stores to 2,500 stores to nationwide. We went from 2 facings to 3 facings to 5 facings, soon to be 6. And so it was so clear at every point that this was working.
Was that the kind of Walmart buyer? Was that just like hustle? Was that an intro? Was that like...
Oh, it's like such a crazy story. It's a crazy story. So I think I've told it one other time, but we actually had gone to Walmart to pitch our bars. Our bar business is no longer, but we had gone to Walmart to pitch our bars, and we had this powder that we were really excited about. And it was never the intention for this powder to be a pivot for the brand. It was just a very logical adjacency given our vision for the brand. But we were so excited and we wanted to get it in Walmart's hands. And honestly, we didn't have a way in. Like, we just didn't have a connection to that buyer. And on my way out of town in Bentonville, I drove far out of the city to go find a gluten-free cafe because I'm a gluten-free girl. And as I was being rung up, the woman working at the cafe was making conversation, and I was telling her about this powder, and she was kind of keeping it close to the vest. And then as I was about to leave, she's like, okay, I wasn't going to say anything, but I am now. So my best friend is the digestive wellness buyer at Walmart.
Crazy.
And I'm happy to make an intro for you, but like, no promises. And I was like, what? So she made that intro. The buyer agreed to see us and she took a chance on us. And We had nothing. We had pictures of what we thought it was going to look like, and we had some samples for her to try, and she leaned in.
Incredible. And then of course, like, you have to deliver the product. Like, now, and you mentioned like 8xing velocity. That's a sometimes they call it what, like the hug of death, or like the kiss. Like, it's like awesome, but also now it's like, okay, what do we do? Were you already in a place where it's like, cool, we can ramp, like we can scale, and it like played out?
We were, and I really credit my co-founders, and our team with that. I'm a marketing salesperson through and through, but we had invested really early on, even though it's not sexy and it's not the fun like PR headline. We had invested in building an incredibly operationally sound business early days. We just put a lot of time and effort there, fully thinking that at some point that would pay off, and it did. It's still, I think, one of our greatest assets is you peel back the curtain and we are built very well operationally on the back end. And so we have 100% on time delivery. We've never dipped. But that was not me. I can't take any credit for that.
Yeah, team. It's all, team doing everybody doing their parts. Earlier in the conversation, you mentioned like the bars, then the powders, and maybe some new stuff. If you can talk about it now, cool. What is that? If not, just how are you making decisions about where to go next, what that product mix looks like?
I'll start with the bars because those are no longer, and they won't be a part of the roadmap going forward. But we started as a bar business, and RIP the bars, they're still a really good product. But it to be honest, it was just clear once we launched the powder that we had such incredible product market fit that it made sense for us to put 100% of our time and effort into this product. So we took the bars out of retail, and yeah, sad days, but it was the right decision for the business. So going forward, I think, again, I mean, don't want to sound like a broken record, but we believe, and part of why we believe it is because it's the experience I had even before I started BelliWelli, is that gut health really is the foundation for looking and feeling better, which sounds so simple, but it sounds that simple for a reason, right? Gut health is where it all starts, and fiber being probably the most important piece of that. And I always say fiber is not trendy, right? Like, we are not doing anything trendy. Fiber is 100 years old. It's been around that long because it actually works. It actually does something. It's not a trend. It's not going anywhere. It's not, you heard your grandma talking about it, whatever, 20 years ago. So we will be a brand rooted in fiber, but all of the products we launch will be rooted in fiber and enhanced with other tummy essentials or belly essentials, which might look different based on the form factor. So vision is we will own a shelf in in any digestive wellness set at the retail partners we are partnered with. So you may see some gummies, you may see, I'm not even sure I can say this, but you will see fiber in some interesting forms within the digestive wellness set from BelliWelli. And then some fun stuff. So we have some celeb flavors coming out, which is fun.
Yeah, I was gonna see if the gummies, like, that seems like a pretty logical extension, especially given like the interest around that form factor, and also just thinking about, yeah, what does evolving digestive health look like? I guess one thing is like, what does that look like if you use that as the base? And then there's like form factors, and then there's the, just like, if fiber's not a trend, but then there are other trends that kind of intersect. And I'm not even saying like GLP-1s are a trend, but like that's an adjacent thing where now fiber is part of that conversation, and XYZ. Like, do you think that's in the scope, or do you think that's like outside, and like where do you play?
I think anywhere you see fiber, we'd like to believe we have a space there. Where I don't think you'll see us is famous last words, right? But certainly not part of the vision as we see it, is launching a BelliWelli greens powder, right? Like, we are a fiber first brand rooted in fiber, but again, like enhanced with tummy essentials. So maybe you see a fiber plus protein moment from us at some point in some form. But it's fiber first because we actually believe that when you really distill gut health down, when you like think about what gut health or digestive health means, fiber is the most important ingredient in achieving gut health. Lots of other things that matter too, right? It's probiotics and electrolytes, things you see in our powder, but fiber is the core, right? If you like, this will sound like a lofty claim, but if you go get more fiber, I don't care who you are, you will feel better in a week, right? It is the thing most of us don't get enough of and has incredible benefits attached. Again, not new or sexy. I think part of the work to do too is, fiber is great for digestive health and regularity, but go down the fiber rabbit hole, anyone listening, it's fascinating. It's longevity, it's hormone regulation. It's just this like magic unlock. Again, it's been around for a long time, but sadly, we're just living in an era where we're not getting enough in actual food.
That's such a huge piece of just, if you want to think of it as supplements or functional food or like whatever it is, like, and all the things that people are being, pushed to them, like we talked about, like so few things, because I'm somebody, like, I've taken every supplement. Like admittedly, I'm not a regular BelliWelli user. I did have the bars back in the day, but just like the number of things that I've tried and spent money on and like been like, I don't know if this works. Like, I don't. And so to have something where it is like, oh, you don't feel bloated. Oh, you have some type of regularity, like all those sorts of things. And then the kind of like adjacent benefits, like you kind of talked about it there, but like, have you figured out how to explain that? Like, ooh, it's like, we're doing this. Like like you're getting that from the product.
I'll zoom out a little bit because you talk about fiber, right? And like it actually being this thing that makes you feel better. I say this all the time. This sounds like a controversial thing to say about your own brand, but I don't care if you take BelliWelli or not, right? And just go get more fiber, period, in whatever form, right? So it could be psyllium husk, right? It could be like, I now feel passionate enough about fiber that it's like, if you never use BelliWelli, sad, but if you do nothing else, just go get more fiber. All we did as a brand is we said, look, let's make fiber taste really good so that you look forward to drinking it. To do this, we're going to add 2 grams of sugar and make incredible flavors. So let's make it delicious. But let's take it up a notch, right? We think we're making fiber for the modern day consumer. And part of this thinking was developed with a GI doctor. It wasn't just our own. It was, if we were to say, look, give someone the full tummy package, right, in one scoop, what does that look like? And that is fiber, probiotics, electrolytes for hydration, and a little bit of collagen for gut lining. So we said, great. We want this to be one scoop, right, in the spirit of like feeling overwhelmed, and again, rooted in fiber because that's actually the most important part. Let's make it taste really good and add the other tummy essentials. So the concept was simple. It's like, let's put the 4 most important things in one scoop and make it taste really great. I think you asked about communicating and like, are we good at communicating that yet? I don't know if we are. And I think that's something like, that's a big project I have this year, is we actually are more than just fiber. How do we tell that story? How do we make sure we tell that story, right? That's fiber plus the belly essentials that actually matter, without like giving someone a list of ingredients on our product, because it is really special. There's nothing like it on the grocery store shelf. There's nothing that gives you 4 in 1, and not even just 4 in 1, the 4 things that actually matter and move the needle in one scoop. But there's work to do. Like how much space do we spend on packaging talking about fiber versus some of these other benefits that come in the product? So no, you're hitting on the pain point, the work we got to go do.
So if you look at what is on the whiteboard or like to-do list or things that you and the team are obsessing over, so that like communicating the value prop or benefits, maybe like that sounds like one of them. Are there other things that you're like, hey, this is, again, whether it's you or like collectively, like these are the kind of big things, and like this is what we're both excited about but also like heads down on? Maybe
Innovation, right? So I think being really thoughtful about, we're in a position where we could probably go out and make most things, but making the right thing, positioned the right way, which is like all part of this positioning exercise. So being thoughtful about innovation. I think 2 is bigger D2C presence, right? So in the spirit of like being opposite of most of the brands that we launched alongside with, we went to retail first, no regrets, high quality revenue. We continue to grow and build, and that's super exciting. Now it's figuring out how to go build a D2C business. So it's opposite. And then 3 is, we touched on this earlier, but we've built a really exciting TikTok presence. It's how many people know the brand today. It's how do we bring that story through into retail, right? So like, how do we bring life to some of the really cool social campaigns that we've come up with, and make sure the consumer who's walking down the aisle in Walmart or Target is able to kind of like connect those dots, right? Like, oh, that's the brand I saw. Like, how do we do that in a really interesting, out of the box, innovative way? And we have a couple ideas, but I think that's like a new challenge that brands have in 2025 and 2026 and beyond, is like, how do you bring those worlds together and make sure they collide?
Yeah, it's kind of a tangent based on that, but is it like, and maybe you've already done this, or maybe that's what you're talking about when you say you have some ideas, but like the kind of activation in real life sampling events, like all those things now, it seems like it has become just like that is you have to have that muscle as a brand to some extent. Like at some point in the evolution, it's like, yeah, that closing the gap, right? From like, these are our maybe TikTok shoppers and like, these are our retail shoppers, and like communicating that messaging and yeah, making it come to life. I guess, have you done that yet? And maybe that's kind of like what you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely in flow this year. So I think, for example, we've like it or not become kind of infamous for the belly bombing, which if you're listening and you haven't seen one of them, it's me putting a scoop of BelliWelli into celebrities' cups. And we love the idea of bringing that to real life in retail. So, right. So, lots of different ways into that, but maybe that shows up on packaging, not saying anything. Maybe that shows up on a display. Maybe that's a real life activation and you can go get belly bombed in a store. That's like one small example, but we just think there's lots of ways to weave in the time and effort we've spent building social campaigns into the kind of incredible shelf presence we've got going at retail.
One thing I don't want to lose in the conversation is you said initially you're like, yeah, we're like 4 years old. Like this is still very early. And as we've discussed, like the retail and then kind of like reverse engineering other channels for a younger brand, right? And moving fast, it's like hard to be like, oh yeah, X number of years from now, like this is what that looks like. Do you think about things that way? And like, how do you think about the roadmap beyond just like, oh yeah, here's the next 6 months that we're executing?
It always drives me crazy when I listen to someone chat and they don't mention what, like, one of the goals being, we hope to sell this business and make money, right? Like, that's part of why you do this. So I think that like people shy away from saying it. So I'm not shy. We want to create an incredible business and someday we hope to be acquired. But I think that's definitely not the short-term goal, right? The short-term goal is, it sounds cheesy, but it's like the thing that gets me so excited, which is we have this incredible product. I feel so strongly that everyone can benefit from this product. I guess if you're the 5% getting enough fiber, good job. You don't need us. But 95% of people need us. And once you try it, you love it. 80% of people rebuy this. So if we know that, my job is to get this everywhere and to get this everywhere in multiple forms and make sure we meet anyone where they're at, maybe a couple times in their day. And we have a long way to go before I can say like we've done that successfully. So right now the mission is just, we've got to keep doing that. And obviously there's lots of ways into that, lots of ways to do that, but that's the short-term mission. Make fiber delicious and accessible, get everyone one step closer to better gut health, and let's have fun along the way. So make this a fun brand.
It's super refreshing to hear you say that piece of like, hey, we're building a business. Like, yeah, eventually at the end of business, like you exit that business. And I think you guys must be stoked just like internally, because it's like, yeah, Liquid IV did it for hydration and Vital Proteins did it for collagen, and like fiber is the thing, and like we are the fiber brand. And so yeah, not to put the cart before the horse, but it's like the playbook is there. Like this is, you can do it and crush it for sure.
This is such a humbling business. Anything can go wrong at any point, right? So I fully acknowledge that, and there's no reason could be someone else, but I think we're really well positioned to do it. That is where I am laser focused, right? Is go execute flawlessly, don't lose sight of the mission, do more of the same, but grow, innovate along the way.
So I'm sure folks are want to learn more, check it out, follow along, like whatever you want to promote or point them, like where should they do that?
So bellywelli.com, you'll see like this is such a crazy way to promote your brand, or like lack thereof. Bellywelli.com, is easy place to get BelliWelli. You'll see that like we've got work to do on communicating our product to you there. So give us feedback when you get on the site. What can we do better? What do you want to know more? What are we not telling you about BelliWelli when you're on the site? But go check it out. Order BelliWelli. You will love it. You'll hopefully be in the 80% who reorders this. And then of course, Walmart, Target, Amazon, anything, everything, wherever's easiest. Or come follow us on social for some like laughs and some cringe and some fun.
Very cool. We'll get everything linked up, make it easy to find. But yeah, really appreciate the time today. Great conversation. So thanks for being here.
Joe, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Such an honor to be here.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you got value from the conversation, please consider subscribing and sharing the podcast with a friend or colleague. It's a massive help. And if you want more content like this, including news and insights on the latest industry developments, subscribe to the Fitt Insider newsletter at insider.fit.co. And one more thing. You can learn more about our recruiting and consulting services at fit.co. That's FITT.co. I'll see you here next week.